Pretty much every time I review a watch and call it a great value, I inevitably get the same comment in the comment sections. And that comment is, I can get a steel dive watch with a sapphire crystal, ceramic bezel, Seiko NH35, and a solid bracelet for $100, so the watch you're reviewing is a terrible deal compared to that. And despite the constant encouragement of everybody in the comments, I haven't yet reviewed a steel dive watch, so let's take care of that first. All right, now that I've ordered the watch, I've still got about 2 to 3 months before it gets here. So in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about value and specifically why these watches from Steel Dive and many AliExpress watches in general maybe aren't quite the value that a lot of people seem to think they are. Now I want to be careful here because in a sense, they do offer an incredible value. That Steel Dive watch that I just ordered, ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, Seiko NH35, 200 meters of water resistance, stainless steel case and bracelet for $100 is insane. And I think when a lot of people see those specs and that price, they assume that that's how much it costs to manufacture virtually any watch. And if Steel Dive can offer it for that price, why can't a micro brand or a major brand? I mean, isn't Seiko totally ripping us off by offering what looks to be possibly the same watch for $1,000 versus Steel Dive's $100 version? And that's really the thing I want to address in this video. This is not about tearing down those Chinese-built watches that you see on AliExpress. I happen to really love a lot of these watches that come out of China, and in a certain sense, I do think they offer a phenomenal value. The problem comes when you start to compare those watches to other watches that you might be interested in. What a lot of people are probably thinking is that Steel Dive is charging a fair price and everybody else is charging a huge markup. But actually, one of the major reasons why these watches coming out of China cost so little is because they do cost a lot less to produce, market, and distribute than watches that come out of comparable micro brands or major brands. So when we talk about value, I think what most of us really mean is we feel like we're getting a lot for the money that we pay. And it feels like we get a lot more for our money when we order these Chinese watches. But I'm going to give you 5 reasons why these watches are available for so cheap and why they might not be as high a value as they're perceived to be. The first reason we've kind of already touched on, and that's that their customer service is virtually non-existent. I just placed an order for that watch from AliExpress and I am fully expecting it to take months to get here. If it comes here in less than 1 month, I will be thrilled. But I would never in a million years have that same expectation from virtually any other seller in the world. If I was going to buy a micro brand or a major brand, I would expect them to ship it expediently, to get it to me within a week or 2. But because the cost of this watch is so low, I'm willing to wait that extra time. And the same goes for my expectations of support after I get the watch. If this watch breaks within 9 months, I'm not going to contact the warranty there. I'm pretty much completely out of luck, but I'm going to be like, hey, I only spent $100 on the watch. I still got a pretty good use out of it. I'm okay with that. But for micro brands and major brands to offer fast shipping, to offer responsive customer support, to take care of warranty issues, all of those things cost money. And the way that micro brands and major brands cover these costs is by including it in the cost of the watch. So one of the reasons Steel Dive can offer that watch for $100 is because they don't have to factor in the shipping or the customer service or the warranty support. At least not to anywhere near the same degree we would expect from another brand. Second reason is that the quality control and finishing on these watches is often much lower than we would expect from a micro brand or a major brand. And this is particularly true when you're talking about the watches that you can get under $200 or under $100. You know, a lot of the watches from AliExpress, when you bump up into the $300 price range, you're going to get pretty good finishing. But for these ultra budget ones, a lot of times the finishing is pretty rough, very basic, and you know, when you compare it to similar dive watches from micro brands and major brands, you're typically going to expect much better finishing, more interesting surfaces, you know, alternating polishing and brushing, and you're going to expect a higher level of quality control. In order to release a watch for the absolute cheapest price possible, you have to cut some corners somewhere. And most often where I see that in these watches from AliExpress is in the finishing. Often you're going to get some sharp edges on various surfaces of the watch. Bracelets might not function that smoothly. You're going to have a higher likelihood of getting dust under the dial and things like that. But again, because the cost is so low, we kind of expect that. But if we're paying $400 to get a dive watch from Seiko, we have much higher expectations, and we're going to be a lot more particular about whether we keep the watch or send it back or demand that they fix the problems that we might see with it. Reason number 3, there's typically not very many costs associated with design because they're largely copying other watches' designs. The most popular watches in this price range from AliExpress are far and away Homages. They're taking proven designs that other well-known brands spent a lot of money to create and test and refine, and they're just copying them and reproducing them at a lower cost. Even Seiko, if they're going to reissue one of their older designs, they're going to have a design team look at it. They're going to be updating some elements of it. They're going to be talking about what the current trends are. It's going to be going through committees and all of these things to make sure that the final product is something that they feel is interesting, something that people will latch onto, something that's a little bit fresh and new. But when you get this watch from Steel Drive, they don't have to do any of that. They're just going straight back to a design they know is proven and worked. It's not one that they had anything to do with or had to pay any costs to create. They can just take that, kind of photocopy it, figure out how it was done, and push it out. And that saves a lot of money. And I think that does take a little bit of the value out of the end product as well. When you get one of these watches, you're going to love it because of the design that some other company worked and paid money to create. However, you're not going to get something new or fresh or unique. You're going to get something copied. If you want something new and fresh, you're going to have to look to micro brands that are actually spending money on coming up with a design that they think they can sell. Or major brands that are probably going to be playing it a lot safer, but still putting a lot more consideration into the designs they produce year after year. And the advantages of copying someone else's design doesn't stop with not having to pay a designer. But before we go too much further, I want to remind you guys to check out the t-shirt shop. Now also a sweatshirt shop. I've got some hoodies in there because the weather's getting colder. You can pick up this Scuba Doob t-shirt. It's got Scuba Doob written in Russian with the Scuba Doob motif on it. And no, these shirts are not affiliated with Vostok in any way. They're kind of an homage, just like the watches we're talking about today. Okay, let's move on to the 4th reason, which is directly related to the copying of other designs, and that is that there is virtually no marketing cost necessary to sell these watches. People buy these watches for 3 reasons. They're cheap, they're well made, and they look exactly like another watch that is really popular. So when you think of a watch like the Rolex Submariner that has all of this marketing behind it that has become, like the most well-known watch in the entire world, that didn't happen naturally. Rolex had to promote it, they had to spend a lot of money to create it, and they had to spend even more money to market it and make it this watch that absolutely everybody wants. And yeah, a large part of the cost of a Rolex is because they spend so much on marketing. And the same goes for Seiko, the same goes for micro brands. Everybody has to spend money on marketing because if they don't, nobody will know about your watch and nobody will buy it. And marketing drives up the cost of a watch. But these watches on AliExpress have copied watches that have already done the marketing for them. So if I go out and buy a Pagani design PD1661, it's not because I want a Pagani design, it's because I want a Rolex Submariner. Rolex was the one who spent tons of money to make me want that watch. All Pagani had to do was offer me a level of quality I was willing to accept and a look that's almost exactly like the Submariner that I really wanted. Finally, reason number 5 why these watches are not quite the value that they might seem. The overall production costs are much lower than basically any other watch out there. Because there's a built-in demand for these homage watches, there's already a ton of factories in China that are ready to go, ramped up to produce all of the parts necessary for these. And if the factories are already producing the same hands, dials, bezels, cases, it's going to cost far less to buy those parts to assemble a watch than if you wanted to create a custom watch, a new watch. And I think that plays a large part in why these homages can get down to such incredible prices. They don't have to spend money to reconfigure their machines and manufacturing processes to create a new unique watch hand style or a new kind of index. Those parts are already being mass produced for as cheap as they possibly can. But again, as soon as you introduce something new and unique into the design, that's going to drive the cost way up. So when a new micro brand comes along where they've come up with a custom handset and new indexes and a cool dial, and they want a case that's finished in a unique way, the manufacturing costs on that watch are going to go up way above what it would cost to manufacture an homage. So in the end, what you wind up with these homage watches is an incredible deal. It's amazing that they can get watches down this cheap and have them be good watches. But they can only do that because of these other reasons that I've mentioned. And that's why you can't directly compare the price of these watches to micro brands and major brands. If you want good customer service, if you want warranty support, if you want something that's a little bit new and unique and fresh, it's going to cost more. So that's my main point here. These homage watches I do think are phenomenal in the value that they offer. But that doesn't mean that micro brands and major brands are necessarily ripping you off because they can't offer you the same price for their watches. Now, they still might be, going into how major brands and even micro brands have taken advantage of customers' goodwill and charged exorbitant prices, that could all fill an entire video of its own. But all that to say, the next time I do a review and I tell you that I think a watch is a great value, even if that watch costs $300, $400, $500, it's because I think that there's something in that watch that is unique and special and worth the extra money that you might have to pay to get it. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches and talk about affordable watches. So if you enjoy content like this, or if you enjoy reviews of affordable watches that you may not have seen before, definitely invite you to subscribe to the channel. And also, please leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with me or if you totally disagree. I made this video because I've already gotten so many great comments from you guys in the past talking about these issues. I thought it'd be fun to address them in a video. But that's gonna wrap it up for today. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.